and welcome. I'm Rawia Alami and this is the Dailies, where we take a look at important news stories, reports, analyses and articles published in newspapers and media outlets across the world. International media focused on the Middle East, with particular focus on President Trump's 21st point plan to end the war in Gaza. The proposal has sparked intense debate and placed pressure on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Alongside this, global outlets closely followed Moldova's parliamentary elections, seen as a key test of the country's democratic direction and its relationship with both the EU and Russia. In the US, coverage was dominated by domestic events, most notably the tragic church shooting in Michigan, which left multiple victims dead and wounded. Other local developments also shaped the national conversation. Most international media focused on President Trump's 21-point plan to end the war in Gaza, with many viewing it as mounting international pressure on Netanyahu. Anna Barsky's analysis in the Jerusalem Post highlights the acute dilemma facing Prime Minister Netanyahu ahead of his meeting with US President Donald Trump. Washington is indeed pressing for a comprehensive ceasefire framework to end the Gaza war, including the return of hostages, Gaza's demilitarization, and most controversially, also a pathway to a Palestinian statehood. Now, while Trump seeks legacy-building peace, Netanyahu faces fierce resistance from far-right coalition partners like Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich, who reject any concessions. Also, international pressure, particularly from Europe and the Gulf, adds urgency, with threats of sanctions and boycotts mounting. Netanyahu appears to be stalling, but the article underscores how the White House may not tolerate delays. His decision could reshape Israel's war, diplomacy, and political future. Dennis Ross, writing in the Washington Post, argues that President Trump's new plan could shape Gaza's post-war future if he uses his leverage over Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The plan, inspired by proposals from Tony Blair and Jared Kushner, envisions an interim Arab and internationally backed administration to provide governance, services, and reconstruction in exchange for Gaza's gradual demilitarization. Ross highlights both opportunities and also risks. While the framework offers a necessary alternative to Hamas, Netanyahu's rejection of a Palestinian state and insistence on total victory complicate implementation. Also, success, Ross contends, depends on Trump's pressing both Netanyahu and Arab partners to commit to disarmament and reconstruction. If managed, the initiative could reshape Gaza and bolster Trump's quest for a Nobel Prize. In America, press continued to cover the Grand Blanc Church shooting, providing more details regarding the tragic event and also the shooter. The Bridge, Michigan, provided sobering account of the attack carried out by Thomas Jacob Sanford, a 40-year-old Iraq War veteran. The paper also explains that Sanford, who drove his flag-adorned truck into a Mormon church before opening fire and setting it ablaze, was killed in a gunfire with the police. At least 4 people were killed and 8 were wounded, with officials warning of further casualties. The report also contextualizes Sanford's background as a Marine, a father, a community member, contrasting his past military pride with the violence of the attack. Also, investigators have yet to identify a motive, though records highlight his political activism and personal struggles. This comprehensive coverage captures both the tragedy's scale and its unsettling contradictions. The indictment of former FBI Director James Comey is still attracting attention in the US, as many criticize the decision, labeling it dangerous. David French, for one, wrote in the New York Times, framing it as the latest and most dangerous step in President Trump's campaign of political retribution. French retraces Trump's long fixation on Comey since the Russian investigation, also showing how weak legal claims were pushed through only after Trump installed loyalists at the Justice Department. The column also stresses the indictment's flimsy evidence and highlights concerns from even conservative legal voices that the case is untenable. More broadly, French warns that this is less about Comey than about the erosion of the Justice Department's independence, echoing authoritarian tactics where political enemies are criminalized to serve power. Many American newspapers also reported on President Donald Trump's intention to attend Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's hastily convened gathering of hundreds of top U.S. generals and admirals at Quantico. The Washington Post highlights that the event was initially called to deliver a short address on warrior ethos, but had already raised alarm over costs, security risks, and concerns about politicization. The piece explains Trump's presence intensifies those worries, shifting control to the Secret Service and adding what some analysts describe as the mother of all photo ops. The report also highlights fears that assembling senior commanders worldwide, especially on the eve of a potential government shutdown, could leave units vulnerable. The review underscores how Trump's decision deepens anxieties about blurred civilian-military boundaries at a moment of sweeping upheaval inside the Pentagon. In an exclusive, the Wall Street Journal reveals that the Chinese president sees President Trump's eagerness for a trade deal as an opening to secure a dramatic U.S. policy shift, a formal declaration opposing Taiwan's independence. Such a concession would go beyond Washington's traditional one China ambiguity and align the U.S. more directly with Beijing. Now, while Trump has downplayed military commitments to Taipei and delayed some aid, his administration insists it still opposes unilateral changes to the Taiwan Strait status quo. Analysts also warn that the Chinese president's pressure could gradually weaken Taiwan's confidence in U.S. backing. With Trump preparing for high-level meetings with the Chinese president, the issue risks becoming the central bargaining chip in US-China negotiations. In the UK, reports of Labour's plan to introduce a tougher good citizen test for foreign nationals seeking permanent settlement dominated headlines. The Times outlines the plan, explaining that under the new rules, migrants would need to demonstrate strong English, steady work and tax contributions, and clean criminal record, and also community volunteering to qualify. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood will announce the policy at Labour's conference, framing it as a bid to counter Reform UK's rise and Nigel Farage's call to abolish indefinite leave to remain altogether. The piece also underscores the difficult questions raised by the proposals, like what academics note as the challenge of measuring social contribution, while refugee groups warn the rules unfairly penalize vulnerable people. The plan highlights Labour's political balancing act between public concerns, Farage's populism, and humanitarian principles. Annabel Denham wrote in The Telegraph arguing that Keir Starmer's Labour government, despite appearing chaotic and uninspired, is quietly reshaping Britain in alarming ways. She used the metaphor of regretting an online purchase to suggest that voters are experiencing buyer's remorse as Labour delivers continuity rather than real growth or reform. Denham also highlights several policy moves also she sees as deeply troubling. The rollout of digital IDs, which could expand state control over daily life, sweeping changes on abortion and assisted suicide, and an employment rights bill that bolsters unions and risks over policing workplace speech. These shifts, she contends, reflect a broader embrace of identity politics and intrusive state power, leaving Britain transformed by 2029 in ways voters never intended. And we'll end with the Moldovan parliamentary elections that delivered a decisive win for the pro-European Party of Action and Solidarity, PAS, securing 55 seats and now holding a majority. According to Ziarul de Garda, this outcome strengthens President Maia Sandu's pro-European platform and also ensures Prime Minister Dorin Rekian can govern without coalition partners. The opposition bloc of communists and socialists won 32 seats, while the SOR party claimed 14 seats. Analysts highlight that the PAS's clear mandate reflects strong public backing for European integration and reform, even amid economic pressure and persistent corruption concerns. Voter turnout was notably high, signaling a society deeply engaged in the country's geopolitical direction as Moldova balances European ambitions against Russian influence. That's it for today. Thanks for watching.